Don't you just want to hug someone? You know, we try real hard here at Calvin to plan our worship, to get all of our ducks in a line. And most people would consider Thursday to be the end of the week. You know, only one day till Friday, right? Well, all of that got just thrown up into the air this week. And on Thursday, we basically started from scratch, and it was amazing how God had things lined up. It's amazing how everything in this service really works together to tell us what to do in times like this. In what seems like an eternity ago, when I asked Anna and Adeline and the Silvis girls to go back out into the cold to take a picture in front of the snowman they had built, I noticed that Calvin's stars and stripes were tattered. So I called Carrie Efaw, imagining that we'd have a little prayer service, but I just left a voicemail. Well, my Wednesday started off with another voicemail from Carrie, apologizing for the delay because they were on vacation, and telling me that in a private ceremony, Carrie R. Efaw, U.S. Marine and Vietnam veteran, and Nathan R. Efaw, U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant and Iraqi War veteran, home on leave after completing an assignment in South Korea, had replaced the flag. And they retired our tattered flag. They properly folded it and placed it in the disposal box at American Legion Post 464. And then U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant Nathan R. Efaw left for his next duty to Fairbanks, Alaska. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service. What a beautiful way to start off Epiphany, which proclaims hope in the midst of despair. But then at 2:15, we are all walloped by despair. And to paraphrase Harry Smith's ode to the Capitol building was viciously overrun by homegrown terrorists. The citadel of democracy is usually a place that exists in America of great, great pride. It's where Abraham Lincoln, in his second inaugural address, said, "With malice towards none, with charity to all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive to finish the work we are called to bind up the nation's wounds." It's where Franklin Roosevelt steadied the nation crippled by depression, said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." And it's where John F. Kennedy called the country to service, saying, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." Anyone who has walked through the Capitol, be it on a school trip or on a family vacation, feel its power. It's palatable. To know that the nation's business is carried on there makes the heart skip a beat or two. Through times of peace and times of conflict, through times of want and times of plenty, most of us have believed or wanted to believe that the Capitol is a place where the people's business was conducted. We, the people's business. Throughout history, representatives came from every corner of the country, and as our country grew, so too did the House and the Senate. It grew to look more and more like we do, a place where men and women would come to work as equals, where color and origin was no barrier. We've all watched on the TV State of Union addresses. And as the camera goes around the room, we see the Supreme Court, the joint staffs, the cabinet, members of the House and the Senate. We hear the robust cheers and the stony silence. It's a beautifully imperfect mix. The founders conjured all of this up. And while it grows more diverse in gender and race and orientation than they ever imagined, it was their idea, the American idea. We've all mourned at the Capitol, whether tens or hundreds or thousands of miles away, paying our respects to our favorite presidents who've passed. And I don't know about you, but I've always expected that the crowds would have been dominated by party faithful of the president who died. But it wasn't ever like that. Whatever our differences, in that moment, were unimportant. Like when Republicans and Democrats lifted their voices after 9/11 singing, on those steps singing, God bless America, my home, sweet home. Our most imperfect union suffered a jolt last Wednesday. A simple procedural step in a peaceful transfer of power was crashed by seditionists. It was as disturbing as it was heartbreaking. It was, quite frankly, un-American. Most of us, I pray, still believe in our ability to govern ourselves, to abide by the will of our fellow citizens. Some of you and your families have sacrificed some. And some of you and your families have sacrificed all to ensure those rights. And not just for ourselves, but for future generations. At our dinner table Wednesday night, we were appalled, afraid, angered. And Adeline asked, "What's going to happen, Daddy?" She didn't ask like the mature 14-year-old that she is. She asked like a 7 or an 8-year-old. And I wonder if she and Josh and Anna heard my voice tearing up as I tried to put my mind over my nerves and assure them that democracy would raise her beautiful head and all would be well. I do know that they heard me when I called them down from the rooms shouting, "It's happening! Come here! Democracy is prevailing!" Did you see it? It was almost as if the sky was opening up and God's Spirit coming down like a dove as we listened to and watched Pence, McConnell, and Graham, not that Graham, Lindsey we're talking about, saying and doing the right thing. You know, just about the only thing that would have made it more aligned with this lectionary test, with the baptism of Christ, would have been if the insurrection had set off the sprinklers. Nonetheless, it was like they were baptized, going down in the waters. They died to their old ways and coming up out of the Jordan. Their sins washed down the Jordan. They were raised to new life. God, right there in the Senate chamber, split open the heavens and said to them, as God says to you and to I, as God says to us today, "You are my chosen, marked by my love, pride of my life." This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is a Christian issue. As a dear friend said last Thursday, yes, just this Thursday, it's okay to be a conservative, a Christian conservative, or a Christian progressive, but it's not okay to be a conservative Christian or a progressive Christian. You see, when we start with being God's chosen, marked by God's love, pride of God's life, we are willing to shape our ideology to fit God's will. But when we start with our ideology and try to shape it to God, it doesn't fit. The pieces don't come together. Friends, you are God's chosen, marked by God's love, pride of God's life. Let us bind up our wounds and strive to finish this work to which we're called, that all may be transformed by God's love, especially those with whom we disagree, to the end that neither we nor our children nor our children's children ever go through anything like Wednesday's atrocity again. Amen? Amen.